Hi, this is Janae. I just want to make sure everyone can hear me.
I can.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Morning, Janine.
Jeannie, do you know if Jack will be joining us? Oh, I see Jack. I see you, Jack, now. He's pulling a Sonny Simon.
Does he have his parakeet?
I was talking about the car.
Oh,
Yes, I'm in the car with you now. I've been playing the part of Scott Tuma.
or that guy. Okay. It's good to have you, Jack.
Hey Scott, this is Ashley. I think we can go ahead and get. I think
We can go ahead.
Simon.
Okay. We're good, Janelle? Janine, I'm sorry, Janine.
Ashley.
I got Janine. Janine, we're good?
I believe so. Ashley, are we live?
Okay.
Yes, we are live.
Okay. All right. We're ready to go. Okay. The Cuyahoga County Public Works Procurement and Contracting Committee meeting for Wednesday, June 17th, 2020 will be called to order. Madam Clerk, if we could have the roll call
Calling the roll, Mr. Tuma,
here.
Mr. Miller,
Here.
Ms. Conwell,
Here.
Mr. Schwan,
Here.
Ms. Baker.
Here.
There is a quorum.
Okay, thank you. And is there any public comment before the Public Works Committee this morning?
No, Mr. Chair, no one has signed in.
Okay, and if I could have approval of minutes from the June 8th, 2020 meeting, please.
I so moved.
Okay, we have a motion from, I believe, Councilwoman Conwell, and a second from Councilman Miller. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And Madam Clerk, if you could please read the first matter referred to committee.
Resolution number 2020-0112, authorizing an amendment to contract number CE 1600134 with CHM Warnick for asset management services for the Hilton Cleveland Downtown Hotel, for the period 6/28/2016 through 6/30/2020, to extend the time period to 6/30/2023, and for additional funds in an amount not to exceed $763,200.
Okay, and who do we have from Public Works today?
Nicole English with Public Works.
Okay, Miss English, if you could, just a brief summary as to what this legislation is about.
So this is an amendment with our asset manager for the Hilton Hotel. They were initially selected under an RFQ process in 2005, October of 2015, when the hotel opened. So they have been our asset manager from the beginning. They've done an excellent job. They're well engaged in pretty much everything that we do with the hotel. They serve as sort of our in-between between the hotel and the county. And also they communicate with the bond trustee and our financial advisors on the county side too, as far as financials go for the hotel. They approve the work with the hotel and approve their budgets every year, their capital requests, and essentially everything that the hotel requests to do, the asset manager reviews and advises us on. So they've been extremely helpful, of late, just in the whole COVID nature environment, and with the revenues going down and making decisions whether to leave the hotel open or close, and how their staffing plans should be. So they've been really helpful to us for the last few months, in addition to what they normally do. So this was a decision that was made from with us and the fiscal office, because they also utilize these services from CHM Warnick to extend their contract for another 3 years. There is a termination clause in there if we wanted to at some point, or if the contract transfers over, if the management of the hotel ever went under the CCCFDC, like the convention center, this contract could be transferred to them. Or it could be canceled. So it's not like we're obligated if for some reason we no longer at the county level manage the hotel.
Okay. So these folks have been in place since 2016 over there.
Correct.
Okay. And this is an extension in short.
Exactly.
Okay. Any questions from my colleagues?
Yes, I have a few questions.
Okay, Mr. Miller.
Mr. Chairman, Miss English, is this the first extension of this contract since the beginning, or or have there been others?
There was one-year extension that was done last year. So the first contract was 3 years. Then we extended it last year for 1 year just to be sure what decision was going to be made, because there was some talk of moving the management of the hotel over to the CCCFDC, but that has not happened yet. So the idea was to put another 3-year amendment in place to give us time, because we want to work with them continually, and so the 3 years gives us, enough time to keep them on board.
So, was there any procurement process in either the first extension or this extension, or did we just decide that we're sticking with the current vendor and we're not considering other applicants?
So there was not a procurement for the extensions, but when we first selected them, there was an RFQ that 6 people submitted. We interviewed 2 firms and selected them at that time. So that was in 15. But the decision was made that they, have done an excellent job. They're really well involved. They're trusted on both, our side from the bond trustee, our financial advisor, and on Hilton's side. So they're pretty well embedded that, even if we brought a new firm on board, it would cost us more money and take us some time to get caught up. And especially in light of this environment right now that is very touchy as far as the finances go on the hotel, that it didn't seem to make sense to switch horses, at this point in the game.
So, is the price the same, or is it changed?
The price has just gone up slightly. I want to say just $1,000 a month, but I can get back to you on exactly how much it is per month that it went up. But they had held the same price for the first 4 years, so this would be the first increase that we've seen.
And so my final question, and maybe the law department can weigh in on this, I'm just wondering whether we need approval of either an alternative procurement process or a sole source, given that we're proposing to do this contract without a new round of competitive bidding.
This is Anka Davis for the law department. As long as the contract is still current and the term is current, I don't think we need to process any type of exemption. Sometimes OPD requires an exemption when the term is expired, but it's not required by the county code.
And when does the current contract expire?
June 30th.
Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Conwell?
through the chair to Holly, in light of this pandemic, it has impacted the full use of this hotel. Can you please refresh my memory on what their management services include?
So for the asset manager,
Yes.
CHM Warnick. So they review the financials on, almost a weekly basis. They're meeting with the hotel. We have monthly calls where they present a report to us as to how the hotel is doing, any, hot button items that we need to be aware of. They manage, if there's a staffing change of a high enough level, the hotel has to reveal that to us. So CHM Warnick would vet the candidates for us and give us a recommendation if it's the right person for the job. They talk with our bond counsel there's several buckets that we have to fill out of the revenues that come back to us from the hotel. So they work with the bond trustee to appropriate the money in the right places. They have been providing information to our fiscal office between Mike Chambers and Walter P. To advise us on, where they stand, how much money they're going to be transferring over, how much we're going to be short in light of what's going on. They, when it comes to annually, there's a budget process that starts in the fall with the Hilton, and they help run that process for us and give us, advice on when we should approve the budget. They push back on certain items, essentially negotiating on our behalf. So really they are experts. This is all they do is hotel asset management. We at the county obviously only have one hotel, and we're not really experts at managing a hotel. So this has been an extremely helpful service to us because we just don't have the internal staff that understands or should understand this. It's a new thing for all of us. So they also provide, I think you guys have seen some of the quarterly reporting that they do, that we provide. That comes from CHM Warnick. They're analyzing the market conditions and showing us where our hotel stands in line with the market. They also produce a public report for us quarterly that can be shared. I think it gets shared at the CCCFDC meetings, and sometimes the media might ask for it. And that's, the information that is not trade secret that can be released on the hotel. So they produce that document for us as well. Pretty much anything that has to do with the hotel runs through them. The hotel might ask us that they want to make some kind of improvement. We run that through CHM Warnick to be sure that there's a cost benefit analysis that makes sense for it. If they want to increase, their staffing, or they want to negotiate a new contract for carpet cleaning. I mean, the asset manager reviews all of these things for the hotel. Anything that the owner would need to weigh in on, we ask CHM Warnick to look at first for us and give us a recommendation.
Do they play any role in finding new venues to come and visit the hotel? That's what I thought they played a role in as well.
So the hotel itself does their own marketing, but CHM Warnick does review their sales and marketing approach, and they will give advice, if they're seeing other things in other hotels or other markets around the country that have been working, they will help advise. They aren't sales and marketing people per se, but they will give advice and they will review what the Hilton is proposing. And they look at the mix of business. So if they feel like the hotel is really relying on, corporate and meetings, and they should be focusing on leisure, they will, sort of talk to the hotel about that, hey, we think the mix should be a little bit different. You guys should focus this next quarter on, really bringing in leisure travel. So they give advice like that to the hotel as well, based on market trends and what they're seeing, in other hotels around.
And they let you know if there's a difference. They let the county know if there's a difference in opinion.
Yeah, so a lot of times we'll see, it's a really healthy relationship, I think, between them and the Hilton, because they don't just take whatever the Hilton gives us and say, okay, and sign off on it. There is a lot of back and forth, and I think it's good on both sides. The Hilton respects, CHM Warnick's opinion and their expertise in the field, and CHM Warnick respects, the Hilton's general manager and what they have to say. So it's kind of a nice back and forth challenge that goes on, especially during budget time, to reach a compromise that everybody agrees to. So it's interesting to watch, obviously not being a super knowledgeable in the hotel market, but it's been interesting to watch because the way it works is really pretty good at the end of the year with the budgets.
I have just one question on one of the points that you made. Where does our hotel stand within the last quarter? You stated this management company kind of keeps track of that.
It is rough, like everything else. I have my chambers here on the specifics. They have been providing us information. They made a decision not to close when some other hotels had closed. We did a market analysis that CHM Warnick led to look at a cost benefit, because if you close it down completely, there's a major cost to start it back up again. And in light of the Marriott closed down, and I think maybe the Kimpton, there was 3 or 4 hotels in town that totally closed down. So we decided to stay up, but with a skeleton crew. So they definitely they aren't making money per se, but they aren't losing, too much money. But there will be monies that the county by the end of the year, because we have commitments to the bond, that we will have to outlay. And so CHM Warnick's been working with us and the Hilton on identifying how much those costs are.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Conwell. Good questions. Any other questions from colleagues?
Chair, I have a question.
Okay, Ms. Baker.
Thanks, Nicole. And that's really a great overview of what it is that they do. My only question is, we're paying about $254,000 a year for the next 3 years. And in the next 6 months, maybe even a year, we could be seeing again slow movement. Was there any consideration that they would reduce their obligation in what we compensate them? I mean, their weekly reviews and financial services. I mean, there's not a whole lot of change there that they are contemplating, I wouldn't think, and staffing changes at the upper level, things like that, that would be constant and engaged. And now I think it's probably there probably isn't a whole lot going on. And was there any thought of maybe they could give us a break for the next few months instead of charging us not only the same, but increased?
So, I mean, actually, it's kind of counterintuitive that they're probably doing more work now than they maybe were on a normal time, because there is constant change in the hotel's budget and making decisions on a weekly basis. Whereas, normally you set the budget at the beginning of the year and you sort of ride the wave and you just keep evaluating against the budget. They are resetting the budget constantly. They're having weekly calls with the Hilton on, where the numbers stand, because again, we need to be reporting back to the fiscal office and OBM as far as what kind of money the county may have to be putting into it. So they are doing maybe different work than they normally are doing, but they definitely are working, equally hard, if not even kind of more. The one break we are getting is there's some expense money in here. Larry typically comes into town at least maybe once every other month. So he has not been traveling, obviously with the ban, and things have been happening virtually. So there's some expense costs that we will not have. And this is a not to exceed number. So if they don't spend it, we will not, get charged those monies. So while we are all, having a budget crisis, I do think they are earning their fee definitely, more now than ever. There is a lot of work that they're doing. And then, we have these owners calls with them that there's several folks from the county that are involved. The fiscal officer, the OBM director, us out of Public Works. We have a representative from legal. Jared is on these weekly calls or bi-weekly calls that we have. Even sometimes once in a while, the inspector general calls in. He's just interested in the hotel performance too. So, they are informing us of things on a regular basis.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Baker. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have one more.
Mr. Miller?
And my question, Mr. Chairman, to Ms. English is whether under normal operating conditions, would the cost of the contract be paid out of the revenue generated from the hotel?
It would be paid out of the 0.25% sales tax. That's where the money would come from. Correct? Yeah. So the revenue from the hotel trickles back down into several different buckets that fills, there's a bond payment that has to get made. They have to pay their real estate taxes. It goes into an operational reserve. There's a furnitures, fixtures, and equipment reserve. There's several places the money goes. It comes back to the county per se, but not necessarily into our general fund. It goes into these different accounts that should be taking care of the hotel in the future. So this contract has always been set up to come out of not those buckets, but the increase to the sales tax that was related to the convention center and the hotel.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Schron?
Yes, Ms. English, this is the second firm, I believe, is it not, that's doing the management for us?
This is the same firm sorry.
Didn't we have a firm that started out when we initially built it that was doing the management?
No, so this is the same firm we've hired since the hotel opened. We hired them right when the hotel opened. We did have a company that worked with us on the financials to set up the hotel and start the project, but they were more of a hotel development company. The CHM Warnick has always been our asset manager on the hotel. There is a separate asset manager on the convention center, which is Conventional Wisdom, and they do talk and work together. So that might be also
okay.
thinking.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schron. Any other questions on this piece of legislation?
Just one question for clarification.
Ms. Baker?
Thank you. You mentioned that the 763,000 was not to exceed. Do they bill us monthly, or is it per the work being done, or how does that work?
There's a monthly retainer that we pay, and then the expenses are on top, and they only bill us for the expenses that they spend. So typically, like right now, we're getting charged for conference call, it might be $2 a call, or, whatever they pay for their conference call line. That's pretty much all we're seeing on expenses right now. But if he does travel to town, then you'd see those expenses. But it's
What is the retaining fee? What do we pay them monthly?
Right now we pay
as
them 19,000, and I feel like it went up to 20,500, but I'll get back to you on the exact number.
So they're guaranteed that.
What's that? I'm sorry.
They're guaranteed 19 or 20,000 a month.
Correct. And then the expenses are on top of that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from my colleagues? Okay. Ms. English, did you say they charge us for the conference line?
Yeah, there is a fee that, even our Zoom, I'm sure we paid for. So they do charge us back on the calls that we have, and it's, minimal, $2.50 also per call or something like that. But that is, lots of consultants do that to us.
Is there a reason we can't use our own conference line?
I guess,
$2,
we probably could switch to that. Yeah, it was set up, years ago, and we just have been using the same number. But yeah,
well,
that does make sense.
Yeah, we might want to consider it. It's
every dollar helps, right?
Every penny counts, right? Okay. With that, any additional questions? I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
I was just going to ask for second reading suspension because this does expire at June 30th, so we would love to get it in place before it expires.
Okay. With that, I'll make a motion. Oh, I'm sorry. Someone has a question.
Yes, Conwell.
Oh no, I can't hear her.
I'm sorry, Ms. Conwell, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Okay, there we go.
There we go.
Through the chair to Nicole English. Apologize for calling you Holly earlier. Yay.
That's okay. You're not the only one.
Okay, it just in light of as the market gets better, are you going to keep you or Director Dever going to keep us abreast, this committee, of when the hotel starts to see some positive returns or whatever?
Sure. Yeah, either us or through fiscal, whichever way, we're happy to update you. We have the CH Warnick reports that come out monthly, so we'll present those.
Yeah, because this worries me. A big piece of property that we own, and originally I wasn't for it, so it all comes back to haunt me.
Yeah, it has been doing so well up to this point. Nobody really was talking too much about it, and now this is a realization that it's a liability that we have as a county.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Conwell. Ms. English, do you know what the current occupation? What is it?
Occupancy?
How many people are occupied? Yes, occupancy. Thank you, Mr.
It's been going up. It was down pretty low in their proprietary numbers, the exact occupancy, but it had been pretty low. But they had been seeing increases over the last month on weekend travel. Now, during the issues we had downtown a few weekends ago, that kind of upset the apple cart a bit. They had a wedding that canceled and didn't stay there. But they were seeing the weekends were starting to pick up on leisure travel as people wanted to get out and do stuff. So it's starting to pick up slowly. They also have some airline crews that were staying there, which again, that number was down because people weren't flying. So those have started to trickle back up. So they're starting to see an uptake. Initially, when everything sort of shut down, a lot of people were rebooking for later in the year, even like meetings and conferences. Now they're kind of seeing people are holding off because they're not sure if the end of the year is even going to be safe to travel or people will be willing to. So it's a constant changing, number that we, again, CH Warnick is talking with the Hilton on a, pretty much every other day operation just to give us a sense of where we stand, but it does change constantly.
Well, there's a direct correlation between convention center occupancy and hotel occupancy.
Exactly.
That we were competing with Indianapolis at the time we made the decision. They have 4 hotels connected to their convention center. We have 1. So it was designed to be at least responsive to our local competition as far as convention center.
Exactly.
Thank you, Mr. Schron. Okay, with that, any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Ms. Conwell.
Through the chair to Nicole. in terms of social distancing, and the governor has laid out plans, how have they been handling that in light of the guests? As you hear the reports on the airlines, they've kind of made a decision that, you know, people can't ride the airlines unless they wear a mask. Is that something similar that the hotel, I mean, since we own it, are we having says and those kind of things?
They have presented their plans to us. There's some improvements that they want to make related to this, similar to how we talked about our building improvements. As far as the lobby and spacing people, and early on they went floor by floor and did a complete cleaning, and then shut floors down so that nobody was in and out of those once they did the full cleaning. So they've got a lot of floors that have been somewhat sealed up once they were cleaned and ready to go. They put some barriers up. They've, some shielding as far as their front desk goes. So there's just some typical what we're seeing on building side, and then just up their cleaning measures for when people do stay in the rooms. They've shut down their executive lounge. So people, kind of had a buffet, they'd have some food and some drinks that's shut down. So people can't just go in and touch everything. The restaurant had been shut down. So they only had the grab and go in a lobby that was working. So they've done a few different things where they've changed up their operation, and then mostly it's cleaning measures.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none with that, I will make a motion for moving this along on second reading suspension, R 2020-0112. Do I have a second?
Second, Mr. Dale.
Okay, we have a second from Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. All right, thank you. Miss English, do we have any update on, I'm sorry, let me do this first. Moving on to miscellaneous business. Miss English, do we have any updates on the state projects that were cut, or the budgeting with the money on the state construction projects and such?
I think we were starting to just chat about this a little bit before you got online with Councilwoman Baker, but we have the issue one was our big holdup that we're waiting on. That was where we had $5.5 million that was sort of stopped in our grants, and we have not heard anything more from them. It's still on hold, but we're continuing to encourage issue one there's been some talk, well, if the money frees up, we'll just roll it into next year. And we've been really pushing to still award this current year's projects. Because we're active, we're selling them, we want to do those projects, opposed to just rolling it in to next year and making everyone apply again. So we are in constant communication, but we have not heard anything more on them releasing the funds.
Okay, well, if you could, we'd like to obviously be kept apprised as to any developments, any pertinent developments on any of that stuff moving forward in our committees.
Chair, may I ask a question on that topic?
Ms. Baker.
Real quick, Nicole, are we using the lobbyist we have engaged to help you with those type of questions and in pushing for those funding?
Yeah, the state lobbyist group is who we're tying into for those issue one. So they're well aware of our issue and trying to at least help, influence and push as best we can.
Okay, thank you.
And Miss English, who is this group that we keep hearing about? Who are they? I mean, are they individuals? Or are they a group, a specific company, or who is it, the lobbyist?
I think Michelle Pomerantz might be on the phone. She holds the contract out of her shop. I don't know if she wants to answer that.
Yeah, through the chair, Michelle Pomerantz, Director of Regional Collaboration. Our state lobbying contract is through Kegler Brown, and our lead is a firm based in Columbus, but we do have some local connections, and we work with Steve Tugin and Mike Culp primarily. Our federal contract is through Squire Patton Boggs, and our lead agent on that is Pam Welsh.
Okay, great. Okay, appreciate that. Thank you. With that, are there any other, I'm sorry, Mr. Miller?
Yes, thank you. And Mr. Chairman, to Ms. English, I'm wondering if you can give us any update on the progress of the county building retrofit process.
So since last week, are we just talking about the on-call contract and what we're working on through that, or?
I'm talking about the process of implementing the first phase that's been approved, and the process of starting to get ready for the bidding process on the second phase.
Okay, so the first one, we're still, we had a kickoff meeting with all the contractors last week, and we've worked through how we're going to progress. We showed them our sample projects. We are finalizing the documents with the architects in order to get them out to the contractors. The second RFP is on the street, and actually this afternoon, we have our pre-bid meeting. So we've been prepping for that, and we're getting a lot of good feedback as far as people saying they're going to attend. So we have that this afternoon, and that's due on the 30th of June. So we will be selecting after the 30th of June on phase 2. So we've had meetings with the Greater Cleveland Partnership on just their database that they use to get contract notifications out to vendors that have registered small businesses, minority businesses, and female businesses. We've been working with Janae Hawley on through the inclusion officer, to get the word out even more. So I think we've sent it right now. We're over 400 vendors that have gotten notice of the new RFP. So we're really hopeful that we hear a lot of response today on our call. And we'll know a little bit more after today as far as what the interest looks like.
So, Mr. Chairman, to Ms. English, you might also consider working with Ms. Pomerantz to let each of the municipalities know, because they probably all have vendors that they also work with that they could notify, and you might get some additional interest that way.
Will do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Good suggestion. And Ms. English, as far as updates on the piece of legislation that we passed last week, who's going to be sending or preparing stuff for the committee? Is it going to be Mr. Dever or yourself, or are we going to just do it kind of by committee as the weeks progress?
I'll put Mr. Dever on the spot. He just walked in. But no, it'll come from one of us, right? We have weekly reporting that we are doing internally anyhow. And so that's what we envision, is this sort of spreadsheet approach that we'll just be sharing that same document with the committee.
Okay, I see a masked man behind you. I'm assuming it's Mr.
So I'm sorry, I just came in on the tail end of that, but it sounded like on the reporting for the building modification contract.
Yeah.
So Nicole's correct. We're going to work to develop a pretty much, I think it's going to be like a memo type of thing, so to be able to give you enough information that you feel it's adequate.
Okay, I appreciate that. All right.
Do you want that to come through you then, or the council staff, or just everybody send it all out at once, just to be sure?
Probably through the council staff, and then they can distribute it to the council.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. Okay, I appreciate that. Any other miscellaneous business before the committee? Okay, seeing none, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay, and the ayes have it. And Public Works will adjourn at 10:33 a.m.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody.